Rosebud's start to the season could best be described as sound. In round one, they drew with the impressive Sydney City outfit. Round two, they had a disappointing loss, 4-0 to Sydney Croatia. And last weekend, they took a point, drawing 1-1 with RP Leichhardt. It's been nothing spectacular, but just solid performances from a team of battlers. In short, Rosebud lacks the class of most teams in the league, but with the exception of the Croatia game, they've managed to make up for it. This weekend, they face another hard task. They meet the undefeated league leader, Sydney Olympic. The Olympic lineup features three former Newcastle players, Simon Grant, the controversial Socceroo Marshall Soper, and former KD player Andy Stankovic.
He didn't have any opportunity to put anything away in this match.
The accident happened near the small town of Kitchener, south of Cessnock, at about 1:30 this afternoon. The Holden utility was travelling south, carrying several 44-gallon drums of water, when it collided head-on with a late-model Ford sedan. The force of the impact sent the drums hurtling forward, crushing the cabin of the ute and then over the top of the other car. A couple, believed to be Americans in the Ford, were quickly released and taken by road ambulance to Cessnock Hospital, where they are both recovering in satisfactory conditions. The driver of the ute was not so lucky, however. It took ambulance, fire, police and the local rescue unit nearly an hour to release him from the crushed cabin. Despite being badly injured, the man was still conscious. As the rescue units worked on the cabin, desperately trying to free the man, his distraught wife comforted him. He was still conscious when he was pulled from the cabin, and he was raced to Royal Newcastle Hospital by the waiting Westpac rescue helicopter. Tonight he is in a serious but stable condition.
Around 15 years ago. It's hard to estimate just how many enthusiasts there are. More than 8,000 are registered under the Ultralight Federation, but that doesn't include the thousands of aircraft that come under the 115-kilogram weight limit and therefore don't have to be licensed. This Gemini model is now the only legal two-seat craft available in Australia. It meets all the requirements both in structure and performance. The Minister for Aviation, Peter Morris, was at the Warrnambool Aerodrome to launch the craft firsthand.
Over the past 18 months, 6 pilots have died in ultralight aircraft accidents, and the Department of Aviation sees today's event as the first step in reducing that number.
Well, those people have been involved usually with their own machines. There's been a long history to the development of this industry, but it is an area of flying, recreational flying, that has great potential. We want to get on the learn to fly in proper conditions and under supervised conditions, and they can have machines available that do meet the necessary standards to ensure safety.
And then it was the Minister's turn to climb on board the $14,000 aircraft. Mr. Morris is training to be a pilot himself, but today it was his turn to be in the passenger seat.
That one would find on our highways. But it's the norm for a group of enthusiasts called Gold Wing. And bikies, they are not.
So restless,
Malcolm, these are outfits that you don't see every day of the week, and yet there are members of the Goldwing Club and numbering quite a few in Australasia.
Yes, there are, Lee. There's about 400 altogether in the southern hemisphere. And the bikes you don't see very many of because they're spread out throughout Australia and New Zealand.
You fellas have rallies with them though, and everyone comes from far and wide to attend, don't they?
We do. We had our first Goldwing rally this year at Narrandera at Easter, and 135 Goldwings turned up, which was quite a presentation considering that we haven't really been a close-knit group for the last few years.
Right. And I believe you're welcome back to Narrandera. You really object to this bikie image that people label you with, don't they?
Well, I think the bikie images should be left to the 1%ers, and generally wherever we go, the people accept us. And at Narrandera, the attitude of the police and the general public was tremendous, and we'd love to go back there next year.
A feather in your cap, this machine actually won the best dressed, as it's called, 1100. So
yes,
that's
right.
quite an achievement, mate.
I'm very pleased about that. It's a lot of work to keep them clean and presented, and unfortunately, because there's so few bikes in the country, we need to import a lot of our extras to dress them up, and of course that's expensive. So it was really a great achievement to get that.
I guess they could be likened to a Harley in some ways. Would people at home remember talk about a Harley Davidson in the same terms, or
well,
no?
we don't really talk about them in the same terms. I think everybody has a bike, and the Harley Davidson riders have theirs, and we love our Goldwings. It's as simple as that.
There seems to be a little bit of sort of feeling between the Harley Davidsons and the Goldwings, perhaps. Am I right?
Well, it's probably a different. You generally find that the Harley riders' lifestyles are a little different than ours. However, Harley Davidson riders ride with Goldwing riders and vice versa, so bikers are generally intermingled anyway.
With all the current controversy regarding motorbike accident figures, we were surprised to learn that one of the enthusiasts, Kevin Cliff, is an ambulance officer. I suppose the question I should ask you as an ambulance officer, surely I would have thought you'd have been scared off motorbikes. I guess you do spend some of your week picking up people that haven't stayed on them.
Oh, for sure, but I've been riding for 20 years now. It's just like riding a car. Once you're on it, you're on it. You ride to the conditions of the road, the conditions of the traffic, and most times you're right.
So they're no more dangerous than a motor car, is that what you're trying to tell me?
That's what in my opinion. We haven't got sort of 6 feet of bonnet in front of us and a thick bit of dirty glass in front of us. I can see the front of my vehicle. Most people can't see the front of their car. The windows are steamed up, full of dirt. Our reactions are a lot quicker, fortunately, because we have to be with car drivers.
You do believe in an advanced course though, don't you? I know you're a member of an advanced association, and that comes back to training is what's going to make things more safe, not just banning motorbikes or banning anything.
Oh no, banning's not going to do anything at all. What we need is training from the word go, and ongoing training, not just you do a course for 2 weeks, get your licence and on the road and away you go, and then jump on something like this. This should be an ongoing thing, an advanced driving scheme. And then insurance companies can come in and say, well, we were not so much percentage off your insurance. This has been proved in England. They have the Advanced Society over there, and they knock 50% off your insurance policy, which is an incentive for people to improve their driving. When I first came to this country, I wouldn't ride a motorbike, and I've been riding them for 20 years, but I'm now used to the style of driving. The people I find around our area, in the Hunter region, they do require incentive, and there's a lot of people who will do it.
If there's an incentive there?
If there's an incentive there, for sure.
The 26-kilometre marathon offered a change of pace from yesterday's dressage events, giving drivers and horses a chance to show their mettle. Singles, pairs, tandem and teams of 4 horses tackled the trotting and walking sections of the marathon. The object is not to clock in the fastest time, but to pace the animals. Drivers must complete each section in a set time, and points are deducted for finishing too early or too late. One of the biggest considerations is the nature of the terrain.
You've got all different type of terrain, and horses naturally go slower up hills than they do down on flats, so you've got to gauge your horse when you pick up speed on the flats and to counter for the loss of speed going up the hills.
What else do drivers have to take into consideration?
The stamina of their horse. You don't want to wear him out in the first half of it, because they've got to do anything from 20 to 27 kilometres, and you've got to, no one tries to hurt their horse, so you nurse your horse around and do the best for him as you can.
One of the hardest sections proved to be this obstacle on the banks of the Allen River, while one Shetland pony simply balked at the prospect. This brave little fellow gave it his best, but with disastrous results. A foretaste of things to come as tomorrow the obstacle driving events begin in earnest.
The match proved one thing for local fans. The Falcons can do it if they concentrate for the full term and keep pressure applied in both attack and defence. They played that way for just 10 minutes of 48 and yet still just lost 92 to 86 after trailing for all but a few minutes. Their best quarter was this one, the third. They came back from 48-37 down to go to the break 67 all. New signing Wayne McDaniel was the local man of the match with a sensational 18 points in the third at a success rate of 89%. Mike Johnson, the Australian guard, was next best with some of his long-range shooting ability on display. For the West Stars, they had plenty of top performers. Damien Keogh, Rob Scrigney, Chuck Harmison and Vince Kelly led the charge, and they were too much of a team for the Falcons. Next Friday, the Falcons play the Premiers Brisbane here in town. And he was able to roll.
Hello, I'm Helen Hughes. 2 members of the Deregistered Builders Labourers Federation were arrested in Newcastle today after forming an illegal picket line. The picket was in protest at the sacking of 5 men from building sites after failing to sign up with an alternate building union.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
The notorious Australian bushranger Ben Hall appeared in Belmont Court today in the trial he never had. It was all part of Gateshead High School Year 10 students' involvement in Law Week.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
The fence and billboards line Scott Street near the intersection with Bolton Street. The State Rail Authority says the fence is needed for security, but most agree the billboards create an eyesore. The Hill Residents Group has found an ally in Virginia Chadwick MLC, who says that with the fence and billboards in place, residents and visitors to the city are not able to appreciate the benefits of the harbour development. She says it's anomalous to have millions of dollars spent improving the foreshore and renovating Newcastle railway station, only to have the good work hidden by billboards. She admits that some revenue will be lost, but that this would be offset by the environmental improvement. The Transport Minister, Ron Mulock, has been asked to consider the proposal. The popular modern musical Grease was made famous as a movie by former teen idol John Travolta and Australia's Olivia Newton-John. The production of the musical by the Metropolitan Players enjoyed a highly successful season at Hamilton, and now for one night, Saturday the 3rd of May, the performance will be put on at the 1600-seat Civic Theatre. Last night, the company staged a dress rehearsal at the Civic in preparation for Saturday. The musical has been described as lively, funny, charming and high-spirited, and it promises to be a great performance this weekend.
The private naturalisation ceremony took place in the offices of the Department of Immigration and Ethnic Affairs. Some of the usual requirements were waived in Ricky's case because of his marriage to his Australian wife.
Ricky, congratulations. Thank you. You're an Australian.
Ricky says becoming an Australian citizen will now mean he can concentrate fully on his basketball.
I think I'll play much better now, knowing that I don't have to sit down anymore and wait for, someone to say, okay, you can play now. I can go out and practice hard knowing that, I can get going.
But the celebrations turned to the more serious task of practice later in the day. Ricky joined giant Jim Moran, Wayne McDaniel and the rest of the squad, loosening up for this Friday's important clash with NBL title holders, the Brisbane Bullets, at the Newcastle Sports and Entertainment Centre. Coach Steve Johansson says with the inclusion of all the top players, the Falcons will be able to shake off the disappointment of last week's loss to the West Stars.
Well, Brisbane are the measuring stick, and we'll be playing as hard and tough as we can for this stage of the year, and I hope we can do very well against them.
In an open letter to the Minister for Planning and Environment, Bob Carr, the Wallaroo Group says the control order, which was gazetted in State Parliament in March, makes no clear-cut distinction between what is termed non-toxic and toxic wastes. At present, non-toxic waste is planned to be dumped at the Wallaroo site, while toxic waste will be stored at the Tomigo site. Dean Crawford from the Wallaroo Group says the order must contain more responsible definitions.
The Wallaroo proposal is to dump what has been classified as non-toxic material into a landfill. Now, it appears that the definition of non-toxic is extremely lenient, and from our point of view and from the oysters farmers' point of view, that definition is just not good enough. That material is still too toxic to put into a landfill at Tomigo.
Why doesn't the order go far enough?
Commissioner Simpson concluded that toxic leachate would form in these cells, that it would escape, and once it has escaped, it can then enter the water table and follow cracks like these anywhere to the dam or to Port Stephens.
The toxic waste dump debate has taken another turn with an announcement by Australian Buffalo Grass Limited. The director of the company, Bruce Grundy, says the company may make some of its land available next to the Tomigo aluminium smelter for use as a toxic waste treatment plant. The company have already engaged a leading consortium well versed in major waste treatment projects to carry out a feasibility study. For the dog and its reluctant mob, it's a case of see who makes the first move. Sometimes it involves patience and a little bit of stealth, but more often than not it involves sheer courage and tenacity. The object of the chase is for the dog to herd its charges through a course of 3 obstacles under the complex directions of a handler. Those seemingly unintelligible combinations of whistles, grunts and shouts guide the dog through its paces herding the mob. Each entrant starts off with 100 points, and each mistake dog and handler makes, some points are deducted. The dog doesn't have to complete the course of the race, bridge and pen, but the top competitors, like Jim Reid from Mudgee, managed to do so in the allotted time of 15 minutes. President of the Murrurundi District Sheepdog Workers Association, Brian Hunt, says the championships show the important working relationship between the handler and his dog.
Generally, they are all either owners of sheep, or perhaps you could refer to them as station hands or managers that are working with sheepdogs for a living.